today's episode of Kitchen Garden Therapy, we will be making Dubai chocolate and cake, sourdough focaccia with rosemary and garlic, sourdough turmeric bread. We will also make sourdough pancakes and go into the garden and harvest some yummy vegetables and many more. Welcome in! Hello, my name is Slava, and today I would like to take you along as I'm going with my day. First thing, I would like to show you my flowers. As you may know, I'm a florist and I like to have flowers in my house on my coffee table all the time as well. First thing in the morning, I usually feed my sourdough starter. I took it out of the fridge and I'm going to feed it. I like to feed my starter in 1:1:1 ratio, which means for 150 grams of starter, I am adding 150 grams of room temperature water and 150 grams of regular all-purpose flour. Today I am making 3 breads, that's why I need a lot of starter. But if you don't need that much, then you can just do 50 grams of each. The quantity, the weight, it's not what matters, it's the proportions. So just make sure you keep it 1:1:1. So after I mixed everything, I'm going to put it in this jar with a rubber band to indicate the starting point of the starter. As it grows, I will be able to track how much it grows, right? So when it doubles, that's when it's ready to be used. And I'm using a folded paper towel with another rubber band to secure it, to protect it from, bugs going in or my cats sticking their paw in my sourdough starter. With the discard, I am usually making breakfast. So it can be either waffles or pancakes. Here you can see I added a couple of eggs, a little bit of sugar, vanilla, and orange zest, and I'm mixing it all together, adding 1 teaspoon of baking powder because I'm not letting it sit for long enough for the starter to activate the batter. I'm adding milk and flour, and that's it. A super easy sourdough pancakes are ready. I'm going to have a couple of pancakes for my breakfast, along with a little piece of ricotta, which is baked lemon ricotta, just for extra protein. Now let's bake some bread. So an hour before your starter is going to be ready, you have to autolyze your flour and water. I'm adding 990 grams of flour with 10 grams of turmeric because I'm making turmeric bread, and 700 grams of water. I'm going to make 2 loaves from this dough. And also I'm going to make 1 focaccia, which is 500 grams of flour and 425 grams of water. By now my sourdough starter is ready. You can see how active and bubbly it is. So now I can add starter and salt to the autolyzed water and flour. So here you can see me adding salt. Usually it's 10 grams per 500 grams of flour and 100 grams of starter per 500 grams of flour. So you don't really need a recipe in sourdough baking. You can just do proportions. After I mixed my dough, I oiled the bowl and transferring dough in there to rest and grow. I'm going to stretch and fold the dough every half an hour, and it will be fermenting at room temperature for about 3 to 4 hours. Same with sourdough focaccia. You add 10 grams of salt and 100 grams of sourdough starter. The only difference is to focaccia you add olive oil. That's like one of the main ingredients. And then you mix it again, either by hand or in the mixer. I like playing with dough, so I don't mind making my hands dirty. Just make sure you incorporate all of the starter into the dough. And then the same thing, oiling the bowl and keeping your dough in there. Make sure you cover your bowls with dough as they are growing. And every half an hour, come in and stretch and fold with this kind of technique as I'm showing right now. At first, the dough will be kind of loose, but the more you do it, the more stretchy it will become, but it will hold its shape after you place it. So this is my first stretch and fold. As you can see, I'm just pulling the dough from one end and stretching it all the way to the other. And you do it a few times around by turning the bowl until you just can't do it anymore and the dough is resisting. Then you pinch it in the middle and leave it for another half an hour. The focaccia dough is much more loose than the regular sourdough loaf because remember, focaccia we added more water. It's 85% hydration rather than 70% hydration with my regular bread dough. But the same technique of stretching and folding and then pinching in the middle and then covering and letting it sit for another half an hour. After a couple of times, you will see some bubbles already forming. You'll see the gluten forming. That's all good signs. That means you did everything correct. And after 3-4 hours of this bulk fermentation at room temperature and at least 4 or 5 stretches and folds, you will put your doughs in the fridge for slow fermentation for either overnight or 1 to 2 days. The longer you allow it to sit in the fridge, the more tangy it will become. So if you like your bread on a sour side, then you can let it sit for longer, 2-3 days. I even had one time bread sitting in the fridge for 4 days before I baked it. But it's all up to you. Even a simple overnight slow fermentation is good. Now let's make some Dubai chocolate cake and regular chocolate bar. So first you need to fry your shredded dough. You can find this dough in Middle Eastern markets. Then you gotta mix it with pistachio paste. Again, you can either make it yourself by grinding pistachios, just like you make peanut butter. So it's the same thing as peanut butter, just made of pistachios. Or you can get it at Middle Eastern markets. So for the cake, I am making cream by whipping heavy cream. Then I'm going to add powdered sugar, mascarpone cheese, and also a little bit of Nutella. Well, this is not Nutella, but similar. Make sure you use powdered sugar for this so it dissolves easier. And make sure you add mascarpone cheese 1 spoon at a time to make sure it incorporates well without deflating your whipped cream. And same with the Nutella. Just add a couple of spoons to your taste. I baked regular chocolate sponge cake, and then I'm going to layer it all together. So just putting some milk on the sponge cake to make sure it keeps moisture. Then I'm going to add the layer of cream, then a layer of the pistachio mixture, and then repeat it all over again. And that's how you make Dubai chocolate cake. I had some leftover pistachio mixture, so I decided to make the chocolate bar as well. I'm melting chocolate on double boiler, and then I just layered chocolate, then the filling, and then spreaded some pistachios on the top. I let it chill, and that's how it looks inside. It is so delicious. You guys have to try it. Alright, and now let's bake our bread. This is focaccia, and this is the turmeric bread, which I will make 2 loaves out of it. Just look at those bubbles. First, I am adding some oil to the surface area so the dough doesn't stick to my countertop and also my hands. Now I'm going to flip the dough in there, and I'm going to divide it in half and shape 2 loaves out of this bread. The shaping takes time, so first you pre-shape it, let it rest for about half an hour, and then you make the final shape. Shaping bread is not hard, but it takes a while to get a hand of it. So first of all, you have to make a rectangle. So stretch it as gently as possible without deflating it, and then you make a roll by pinching the sides, and then you roll it again the other way, and that's how you make the round shape, right? The shape of your bread will depend on what kind of baking tool you're using, right? So I have 2 Dutch ovens. One is oval and one is round, so that's why I'm making one bread as round shape and the other one will be long or oval type of a bread. So depending on what you have in your house, that's how you shape your bread. So as you can see, this bread I made longer, not round, and I'm going to allow them to rest for about half an hour on the countertop. Again, I'm going to oil it so they don't stick to the countertop, and also I'm going to cover them with plastic so they don't dry up. It's very important to keep your dough covered. You can also place kitchen towel if you don't use plastic. Now, before the final shape, I'm going to put enough flour to my banneton, just to, again, make sure it doesn't stick. And I am going to shape them again the same way as I did pre-shape, by stretching into a rectangle and then folding it. After you're done shaping the dough, just place it upside down into banneton to keep it there until you're ready to bake. With sourdough focaccia, you just oil the baking sheet and flip your dough in there, stretch it to the best of your ability and cover it. Allow to sit at room temperature for an hour to 2, depending on the temperature of your room. As I'm waiting on the final rise of my dough, I'm going to harvest some vegetables for dinner tonight. And here you can see me grabbing some tatsoi, and I'm going to harvest bok choy as well. I like the color of this one. It's so nice and bright, just different from your regular typical green bok choy, right? Like this one. But I like to mix them together. They are delicious. Also going to harvest some kale for salad. I like young baby kale. it's not as tough as when it gets more mature. So enjoy kale while it's in baby form. And of course, the star of the spring vegetables is radish. I always like to grow radish because it just tastes so much better than the store-bought. Anything, if you harvest it fresh and eat it right away, it's just so much better. A little bit of tarragon. This tarragon, by the way, overwintered. It did not die. I just left it in the pot from last year and it survived Chicago winter. So I'm really happy to have a lot of tarragon growing right now in my garden. Also, I am going to harvest a little bit of cilantro. This cilantro I sowed in January as winter sowing method. You can still see it's in the plastic container, and I don't think I'm going to transplant it. I will just harvest it to eat right away. So now the sourdough focaccia is ready to be baked. So I added some oil on top and I am going to spread it in the baking sheet. You can see bubbles forming as I am poking it. That's perfectly fine. That's how it's supposed to be. You can add any toppings you like on top of your focaccia. I just like very simple slices of garlic and rosemary. Also, you can add olives, onion. I know people add all kinds of things. I used to add fresh herbs, but they burn and don't really look good or even taste that good after baking, to be honest. So now I'm sticking with like simple rosemary garlic. That's like the classic. Just spread it all around and bake it at 425 degrees for half an hour. And that's how sourdough focaccia looks after baking. Now for the turmeric bread, I have to place 2 Dutch ovens in the oven at 500 degrees for at least half an hour for them to become really hot. So when I place my bread in there to bake, it will have nice crust. And now I'll show you how I actually bake my bread. So first I have to flip it over. I like to sometimes tie my bread with a thread to kind of give it a nice shape. So this is how I do it. I cut 2 pieces of thread and place it like this. Then I flip it and then I tie the thread on top of the bread. So just like this. Make sure to always score your bread, not only for looks, but also for the steam to be able to escape. Otherwise, your bread will explode. Basically, it will allow the steam to escape, but you may not like the result. So if you want your bread to be a certain shape, you have to do it yourself. You can also poke some holes for additional steam to be able to escape, but that's optional. I bake my bread at 500 degrees with the lid on for the first half an hour, and then after half an hour I take them out and I remove the lid and I lower the temperature to 450 degrees and I bake it for another 20 minutes. I really like the color that turmeric gives to bread. It's so pretty. Really enjoy it. The shape of this bread turned out to be so funny. I didn't mean for it to be one-sided like that, but it is what it is. The taste of this bread is so good. I highly recommend you to try making turmeric bread. I will place a picture on the screen of how it looks when it's cut. Thank you all for coming along with me as I'm making my sourdough bread and gardening. I will see you next time.